Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. We're almost at 400 subscribers. It took us only 7 years, but we're almost there, and I was really happy to see like this periodic growth in my subscriber count. I took like a month off because I wanted to just really explore where I wanted my content to really go. And so I took a month off, and I was still creating like short, Instagram and TikTok content. But I didn't want to fall in the trap of feeling like I needed to fully conform to this whole movement of short form content, because the stuff I want to talk about cannot be condensed into 30 seconds. Like, I have like real topics I want to spend minutes talking about. And also, you're going to be seeing me periodically like wiping off my sweat, because I recorded this video once with the fan on and it was just a hot mess, and so I had to turn it off. There's no AC in my house, and so I'm just going to be sweating, and the window's also closed. So when I took notice that my subscriber count was, still growing as I was taking like this month off, I went to go to my analytics, and I went to go see which videos were, I guess, performing well. The video on the top of the list was a video I made 5 years ago titled, "I'm Legally Blind and This Is What I've Learned." And I also think, like, when I posted that video 5 years ago, and I also think when I posted it, that wasn't even the title of the video. It was more so like, it was around like being legally blind, but it wasn't that. I think I changed it like a year ago. But I remember making that video and feeling so hesitant to post it because, during that time, and even to this day, like, my content is centered around travel and languages. And I thought it was kind of risky to introduce this new pillar into my space of content because it just wasn't consistent with what I was already talking about before. And so, but I posted it and nobody watched it. But it was still fun to post because that was the first time I actually felt comfortable. Not even comfortable. I felt it was my first time being vulnerable in front of the camera. I think I even almost shed a tear or two. But it was my first time. Like that was the catalyst for me feeling comfortable enough to come on camera, even if I wasn't feeling my best. I think that was really like what set like that. Yeah, so that's what happened. I posted the video, and now it's, 5 years later, like, more people are watching it, and I figured, let me just follow up on that, because I made that video when I was 20. I was 20 years old. I was living in Brazil as a study abroad student, and life has definitely changed. Like, I'm 26 now, and life has definitely changed, and what it meant to be legally blind to me back then is a bit different than what it means now, because since this whole 6 years that's passed, I've been able to, move to a different country for graduate school, and I've been able to, have jobs and to really change my social life in a way where it's now I'm a bit more outspoken about my condition, which I wasn't back then, which played a huge role in how I was navigating life as a disabled person. What I will say is now, being 26, living in a different country, in Egypt, having completed graduate school, having opened my business, there's just so many things to my story now that have really changed the trajectory of what I felt before as a disabled person. Because back then I felt like I was still able to accomplish, but it felt like it was more so going to just take me a longer time. Which I still do believe that in a way. I think it depends on your disability. I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But what I've learned since then is, so I'm just going to go down the list. I have 3 things that I wrote down that I feel like I've learned throughout the years of growing more into my identity as a disabled, legally blind individual. So the first thing I've learned is that many people are actually more understanding and embracing of your condition than you think. I remember back in college when I was in undergrad, I felt like I was very passive when it came to my disability. I wasn't really outspoken, and I just, in a way I was trying to conform to ableism, because I felt like if I opened up about it to people would feel this great sense of compassion, and people would maybe even find it inconveniencing. Find it as an inconvenience, I would say, if that's the right way to say it. when it came to school and working, I was afraid of people getting a request from me for special accommodations to be able to perform my work. People would perceive that as an inconvenience. In school, I was quiet about my disability because having a disability is a really unconventional experience, and it's like whenever you have something that makes you stand out in a way where it's going to maybe induce compassion, you don't want to just talk about it. At least for me, like there's just things that in my life where people hear about it, they're like, wait, like that's so, wait, how do you live life? I'm like, well, I just live life. But I realize that more now that people don't really care, and people are actually more embracing and more supportive of you when you have these certain hindering conditions. For example, when I went to graduate school, I told them, hey, I have cone dystrophy, which is an eye condition that deteriorates your eyes, and because of that, I need special accommodations to be able to see the work, to see the board, things like that, etc. And so they were all really supportive. Even like one of my teachers, my Arabic professor, actually, she told me like, wow, like my husband actually suffers from blindness, and I provide support to him every day for him to be able to see and to, but his vision is a lot worse than yours. But, so just even hearing that from my professor was reassuring that there are people in your life who are not unfamiliar with what you're going through, and that helps them to help you, and I think as someone who has a disability, I just always feel like people just don't understand. And I think that's what keeps me from opening up to people about it, because of the fear of people just not understanding. And if they don't understand, they're not going to know how to deal with you. And I think that's what kept me quiet for so long. Sorry, I'm out of breath. But so in graduate school, I realized the more I was opening up about it to people, the more I understood that people are actually more supportive than I thought. When I began working, it was the workplace that was actually a bit more concerning for me, because I felt like, well, if people don't have a disability, then they're not going to want to hire me, or they may fire me when they realize I have a disability. It was just so much going through my mind, and I wasn't really sure about like the laws that were in place that companies have to follow when they have a disability, or when they have someone who has a disability. So there's things that protect you legally, actually, and the society is not against you. I had to realize like the society isn't against you for having a disability. In the workplace, I've been able to have jobs where they were really understanding, obtain the accommodations that I needed to perform my work, and I've only ever felt supported when I was working. And so that's one thing I realized, having turned 26 and having this experience of working and being in graduate school. I've learned that I've just learned like society is just not against you as a disabled person. The second thing I've learned is that the government looks out for you. The government really looks out for you, at least in the States, if you have a disability. I know that I've been really critical of American foreign policy, and like the government itself can really use a lot of restructuring and prayer. But I think at the same time, when it comes to the diaspora of individuals who have disabilities, like there's so much support being provided to this community of people, and I've benefited so much from that support even since high school. Like the government's like throwing money at you, they're sponsoring school, like they provide so much for you as the person with a disability, and I think that's something I can't deny that. Like there's also just so many different programs designed to accommodate disabled people, and so that's one thing I've realized, is that the government in the States is really supportive to people who have disabilities. The third and final thing that I've learned as a disabled person is that you're legally blind. Like your blindness does not have to be a hindrance to what you want to attain in life. I think I even mentioned this in my video like 5 years ago, that I've been able to achieve so much, and since then I've been able to achieve a lot more. I've lived abroad several different times. I've learned different languages. I've had jobs. I've opened a business. And all of these things may have come easier if I wasn't disabled, but these were things that I think having a disability actually makes your story a lot more inspiring to people, because you're actually able to connect with a certain population of people who are living an unconventional experience, and because of that, there's probably not many people they can look up to. But yeah, having studied 6 languages and having created a business on my own and having done all these things I wanted to do, I realized like my blindness doesn't have to be a hindrance. And I think when it comes to having a disability, there is some barriers you have to overcome that, abled people don't have to experience. And that's one thing to acknowledge, is that the journey may be a lot longer, maybe a bit tougher in a sense, but it's not impossible. And I am a living example of that. I lived in Egypt for 3 years, growing more in my own independence as a disabled person. And I think that's just one thing that attests to the fact that you can have this barrier in your life, but still understanding that success is not out of reach.